Hey guys, Tommy here over at the Bar Athletic Club, The Bar. I wanted to talk about board pressing. I had talked about pin presses before, and I didn't go into a lot of detail about it. Board pressing and pin pressing are similar, and essentially you're going to get the same result, but they are different. So I want to talk about some of the differences and uniqueness of the two. But I want to get more in depth about board pressing. There are many benefits of doing board pressing. You can increase your speed of your bench press, increase the size of your triceps if you just want big triceps. It can help you handle heavier weight with more ease or be comfortable with it by stimulating your central nervous system, help with proprioception. Proprioception is it's basically like spatial awareness, knowing where you are in range of motions, your body position. That's very important. Technique is very important, that's another aspect that you can work on in the board press is technique, your setup, the way you press, where your elbows and body position. Because you'll be handling heavier weight in a shorter range of motion, your confidence will go up. And if your confidence goes up sometimes, that's all you need to get a PR. For me personally, I went through a period where I could not increase my bench, and one day I hit a 402 bench in a meet, and then my max just went up and up and up and up and up, and I was doing frequent meets at the time. My bench max went up 30, 40, 50 pounds in less than a year. But that wasn't because my bench went up 50, 60 pounds in less than a year. It's because I had that ability, I just didn't have the confidence. So once you have that confidence, the ability will come with it. Oftentimes, not guaranteed, if you have the ability. It can be used for rehab or prehab movement. Rehab, because a lot of times people don't want to stop benching when they get an injury. If you have an elbow or shoulder or tricep injury, especially a shoulder injury, you're pulling a lot of the strength out of the shoulder and taking a lot of the tension off of it, doing like a 3 or 4 board press. I remember in high school, way back in the day, the quarterbacks or anyone with shoulder issues were never benching to their chest. We didn't use boards back then, but they were using a towel wrapped around the bar. And so this was like a really soft, gentle touch. And still, they were not told to place the bar on their chest. Board pressing is great for equipped lifters, training in bench press shirts, for obvious reasons. And you can work on overloading your bench. So you're going to have the ability to use more volume, more intensity, more frequency, because you'll be able to train more often. Me personally, I have me and my clients, some of the one method I use, we'll do board presses and pin presses done before everything. Okay, so we'll go very heavy and then do squat, deadlift, whatever, and then come back to regular full range traditional bench press, and then we'll do that. So by the time you get your last set in, you're spent. But it's a great way to train. And these different things, these different positives that enhance your bench press, because of this range of motion and handling this weight, you can work on other things like perfecting your arch and being able to handle those heavy loads in an arch, teaching or mastering leg drive, stability in your shoulders, or just your general torso, everything. Speed and power can be maximized and trained. Strength, obviously, is the most obvious one. And then hypertrophy. If you're training, a lot of times you see these bodybuilder types and they don't use a full range of motion on bench and they stop midway just in the air. Well, you could just do board presses too. And you could bounce, or you can touch softer, which we'll talk about that later on too. Okay, so you have different boards, obviously. You've seen people do 1 board, 2 board, 3 board, 4 board. And there are differences in these, obviously. They serve a purpose. Everything that you do in the gym serves a purpose, right? Or else why would you do it? Like if your coach says, hey, I want you to do straight leg deadlifts after you're done with squats. Okay, why do you do this? Ask why you do this. It's going to help strengthen those obvious muscle groups, your rear, low back, hamstrings. What will those benefit? So that is going to benefit something that you're doing. This is going to benefit doing board presses. So a one board press, you won't be going as heavy, of course, as you would with a 3 or 4 board. But this one is most different than training with a 3 or 4 board or even a 2. And the reason why is because you get more torque in your shoulders. With a 1 board press, you're still going to press it just like you would a regular bench press, that you take the bar to your real actual chest instead of a board. Okay, you're going to still have a lot more of your chest emphasized and a lot more of your lats and a lot more of your shoulders used for strength, not just stability. You'll still have the ability to work on speed off of your chest at this point and staying tight at the bottom of your bench. 1 boards are still a great way to, it's a great way to train. So if those are things you need to work on, then do some 1 board press training. 2 board training. Once you get past the 1 board and you get into a 2 board, you're going to emphasize less strength in your chest, strength work for your chest, and strength work for your shoulders and lats. And the further out you get, it's going to be less for your chest, shoulders, and lats, and more about your triceps. Your shoulders become more of a stability aspect. Any which one of these ranges, they all have their benefits. Of course, some people want to train a weak point, correct a weak point, right? That's probably what most people see as the biggest use for board presses or pin presses. For me, a weak point is a controversial topic to me because I don't necessarily completely agree that you're failing a lift because you have a weak point in your range of motion. You may have an inefficiency in a muscle group that does that, that it prevents your squat from, say your quads aren't as strong and you're not locking out your squat at the top, or your triceps aren't as strong, you're not locking out your bench at the top. We'll just, train in this range of motion and it'll help. Yeah, somewhat. But then once you do that, then what happens? The bottom of your squat or the bottom of your bench is lowered. Then you have a new weak point, right? So then what? You just do full range of motion. Yay, nay, maybe say whatever your coach says or whatever you say, whatever you program. Because not everyone is the same. Different things work for different people. And a lot of times it's very similar, but it's still, we benefit from different things. So once you get to the 2 boards, you're working on your triceps. And once you go from there, you have less shoulder use being done. One thing you do want to focus on is how you touch the bar to the boards and how the board is sitting on your chest. You want the person holding your boards, if you have someone holding a board, you want to make sure that board is touching you. It's not at an angle. Yesterday I had someone trying to angle the board out here, and then I had another person go here, rather than just flat and flush over my sternum. And then I believe that's the xiphoid process. It's the very bottom right here where your rib cage is under your pecs. Okay, where your rib cage is. So you want this to be flat, basically chest and belly. That's what I told my board holder. I wanted the board to be flat, because if it's up, well, then it's changing my range of motion. And if I have someone else on my board, then the range of motion is going to be different again. I want consistent range of motion. You want everything to be consistent. Because if you bench, say you bench different in competition than you do in training, what's the point of that? Play baseball, you're not, if you hit better swinging low, or if you hit better a certain way in baseball at bat, then why are you going to swing a different way? Have your right leg up versus back. Stepping into the swing versus not. Do what you do in the game the same way you do in practice. Vice versa. Okay. So we mentioned touches. You have different ways to touch on your press. You can pause completely on the board. You can touch and go. You can let the weight sink in. All these have purpose, and they all have reason. So, for me, I probably practice a soft touch the most. And I know I do. I practice that most when I'm benching too. This does multiple things. It provides more time under tension of the lift in that negative phase. And then there's more focus on control. Because you have more focus on control, you have more emphasis on technique. So that person is going to be working on more technique. So I have great technique because that's just how I bench all the time. When I go through these absolute strength phases, I get a lot out of it because my technique is good. So your next is going to be, instead of a soft touch or a gentle touch, you're going to go to an absolute touch. You're going to go to, not necessarily dropping it, but dropping the bar on your chest. You'll have, occasionally I've seen there's a guy that used to train here that had a really poor habit that he had developed. He said it may have been from fear. Who really knows where it developed from? But he lowered the bar so slow that it's hurting his potential to bench because he's exhausting himself. He's exhausting his shoulders and his triceps and his chest and his lats before he even gets to press the bar. So the dude could probably press 25, 35, 45 more pounds, and he's wasting it on his descent for whatever reason because of the habit he created. So this could help do that and correct that. Load up a ton of weight, have the lifter drop it to the board. It won't crush your sternum, and then you just press it back out. And at the same time, like, this is going to create confidence because you don't have to go through that lowering phase, and you will be stronger pressing it. So, however, doing this, you still need to keep your posture, keep your bench set up. If you fail that, then you mess up the lift. You don't ever want to do that. So it's important. Just like any other time you're going to bench, you want your posture and your setup to be the same. Touch and go presses. When you do a touch and go, as opposed to doing the others, doing it complete pauses, you're going to be able to do more reps. You ever see a guy do a rep out competition? Rep out competitions, they normally do just touch and go, right? I got to do one at the Branch Warren Classic one year, and I wanted to show off because I knew I could beat the number that was up there. So I went at the end of the day, and the guy hosting was like, "Let me get this other bar because you're gonna bounce it off your chest." I was like, "Nah, I'm gonna pause it," and I did. I did 32 reps with 225, and I paused every single one of them. And because I was being a show off, I was being a douche. But anyway, I won that competition. Got a free tank top. Didn't even like it. Gave it away. But anyway, a touch and go, you're going to be able to get more reps in. Going for hypertrophy, or you're just trying to get more volume in, that's the way to go right there. If technique isn't that important, if it's not your priority, then just doing work and volume, this will get work and volume in. Another one is going to be sinking the bar. So once you press the weight, once you touch the weight to the board, then you can sink it in. A lot of lifters, usually bigger guys, heavier guys, have more body fat, and they sink the bar into their fat, and then they, in addition to leg drive, they thrust their chest up, and with that, their body fat helps them, and they push the weight up. So that's another way to train, and it can work on that technique, and you'll get a lot of power from doing that. Really cool way to train. And then you have pauses, which we talked about pauses in a soft touch, hard touch, but the importance of a pause is that staying tight at the bottom, and if you're tight at the bottom versus loose, you're going to be faster off of your chest initially. So many people say, oh, I'm really slow off my chest. But if you, oftentimes you look at these people's press and their technique, it's because when they set, oftentimes, not every time, oftentimes these people will set the bar on their chest, but once they've set it, they rest the bar on their chest, and they turn the bench press into a deadlift press. Okay? So that analogy, when you go up to a deadlift, if you've done deadlift, and watching this video you may have, and you probably have. But if you haven't, the first rep of a set on deadlift tends to be the toughest. And it's because that weight is at a dead stop. It's dead weight. However, if you do not if you do not set the weight down after each rep and you just touch and go, then to a limit, each following rep is going to be a little bit easier than that first one, because you have that momentum and it's not dead weight anymore, whether it's bouncing off or just touch and go. So same thing with your bench. If you just rest that weight on your chest, on your rib cage and your chest, it's going to be harder to press off than if you stay tight and your muscles are already activated and ready. You're not increasing your range of motion to let it go in. See what I'm saying? This is great for raw benchers, probably more than a equipped bench. Either way, a lot of these techniques are going to benefit both. Grip width is important. I have a program that I follow. I kind of ripped it out of a Westside training method, and they'll work on multiple grips in one workout. Okay? And what's the benefit of this? Well, what's the benefit of multiple grips? What's the benefit of an individual grip width? You need to know that. You need to know that because what do you need to capitalize? Or what do you need to correct? So, a close grip bench is, most people will know, they'll say, oh, that's for tricep development. Yes, where do triceps work? In your lockout range of motion. So, Dave Tate says that a close grip bench is going to work the top quarter of your bench. Okay, so how wide you go is really up to you. Some people have longer arms, some people have shorter arms, and some people grip with their fingers all the way to that last power ring, and some people don't. It just depends on where you bench. That is relative to you to decide. A medium grip width. So this is going to be slightly wider than the close grip. Dave Tate, again, he says that this works on your top half of your press. Okay, so a little bit less emphasis on your triceps, a little bit more of your lat and chest and shoulder. So this is going to have a little bit more dynamic to it. Then you go to a wider grip. Your close obviously is narrower than your traditional bench form. Your medium is still slightly narrower than your traditional bench form. Your wide grip is going to be wider than your traditional bench setup usually. unless you have a wide grip vary already. So it still should be wider. So this is going to work on more pec, more chest, and more shoulder. Pressing out of the bottom, depending on what board you choose. Usually you want a 1 or a 2 board on this. It's going to help with stability. But again, this is going to help with tightness and stability at the bottom of your bench, and then stability as you press up and out. And then you have your extra wide. So this is like, you can't go any wider. You're working on, again, chest and shoulder, but even more emphasis on chest and shoulder. Little to no tricep. And on these wide and extra wide, I will encourage you to squeeze the bar and try and spread it apart. Often people say to do this as a lifting cue while you bench anyways. Cues are meant to correct things that need to be done. I don't do that cue for myself because I don't feel like I initially need it. Because the grip width I use, it's not beneficial. But anyway, if it's beneficial to you, that's for you and your coach to decide. But chest and shoulder development works even more stability because you're more stable here, okay? You're more stable, your body is most stable with your joints, oftentimes, with your joints stacked. So your fist, your wrist, your elbow, when those are stacked at the bottom of your press, you're most stable, right? But if they're out wide, you take a 50-pound dumbbell, hold it right here, and lay down on your back, you're more stable. Put a 50-pound dumbbell and put them out here, you're not going to be as stable and strong, right? Right. So that's your extra wide. So we had talked about board presses. I said I wanted to talk a little about the pin press too and the difference. A pin press is usually done with a complete pause. And it's a more absolute strength method, usually. And fitness and lifting and everything, it is dynamic. So it's not an absolute, you don't have to do a certain thing a certain way. But most oftentimes, it's an absolute strength movement. There's less stability involved because you have 2 pins at the bottom of that press. You rest the bar on 2 stable, solid pieces. Versus a board press where you're just pressing it on a 2x4, a 4-inch piece, and if you turn it vertically like I do with a 2 board, then it's even smaller and requires more stability from your body. A board press, it's done paused or touch and go, and it requires more balance. It's still strength, not quite as heavy because you are going to have more stability. They're both great ways to train, and they're different, and they will both benefit you. I have my lifters do both sometimes in a single training program to maximize bench press potential, and they're different. But whether you're doing board presses or pin presses, you can still work on things that you do on a regular bench press. You can work on speed. You can work on absolute strength. You can work on hypertrophy and size. You can use chains. You can use bands. You can do pauses. You can do a Spoto type pause before you touch the bottom. Anything that you can do on a full range bench press, you can do also with pins or boards. Yeah. So that is my explanation for pin presses. Share your thoughts. Talk some shit. Give me your thoughts. Say some stuff. If you got a question about something or you need a demonstration, let me know. I'm happy to help.